The mules are in the corral. Welcome to Mule Talk, and I'm Cindy K. Roberts, your host.
And our author, TV personality, and world-renowned mule trainer, Meredith Hodges of the Lucky 3 Ranch. We are back on in the studio. Meredith, it's rough out there, and I feel like raising a little bit of hell. How about you?
I feel exactly the same way, Cindy. We've been listening to people bad-mouthing our mules and donkeys for centuries.
Right.
You know, and taking the negative side of everything, and our society has reached an all-time high at criticizing everybody with no solutions. And I am just fed up with that. And once again, our mules have risen to the occasion, and so that's what we're going to talk about today.
Sure, we're going to talk about what are mules good for besides packing and farming. So let's do it.
Okay, well, just to start this all, they thought at the onset of the industrial age and tractors and motorized vehicles that the mules were going to be outdated and would no longer be a usable animal anymore. But the modern contemporary mule of the late 1970s has emerged as a fine saddle, driving, and pack animal, and no longer does he come from exclusively low-grade mares. With the upgrading of the mule breeding, the mule is a new, gentle, and versatile animal capable of performing well in all forms of equine athletics. And I did a lot of that myself when I began back in the early 70s, competing mules against horses. Mules can do cow work. They can just do regular work like farming and pleasure driving, packing, jumping, and they're better suited for long trail rides. And they possess all the traits that have made mules popular throughout the centuries. A willingness to work. They're an easy keeper. They're more resistant to parasites and disease. And they're extremely sure-footed. And his indubitable intelligence is often confused with stubbornness because he has a tremendous sense of self-preservation. And if the handler is trying to do something stupid, he just won't do it. So this is where they get that reputation for being useless, stubborn, ornery, and all hard to work with and all of those things. But mules are actually capable of being used for as many different things as are all breeds of horses put together. Since a mule gets most of his ability, his athletic ability, from a mare, one need only scout a mule out of a particular kind of horse to match the desired ability that you want. A mule out of any breed of horse will be stronger and more durable than the horse out of which he came. Mules played an important role in our country during the Reconstruction period. They patiently worked in the fields, packed necessary artillery for the army, and served as durable riding and driving animals in the Western movement. With the coming of the industrial age, their uses were minimized and they were faced with the possibility of extinction in the march of progress, so-called progress. I've got some things to say about progress, for sure. The only progression I see is in the mule community. Progress is that mules are doing more things than they ever did, and the handlers that they have, there's more people now that actually like them. They're actually becoming better people because of the mules. So today, through the persistent determination of mule enthusiasts, mules are once again emerging as a conceivable asset to our economy and a unique form of athletic achievement and entertainment. With new and improved training techniques, the mules of today are known for their beauty and outstanding athletic ability, their durability, and their intelligence. Their uses are limited only to the imaginations of their owners. It's now commonly known that with proper handling, a mule can perform better than the horse it was bred from. Subsequently, mules are not only competing in mule shows, but horse shows as well. In events from cutting to dressage, cattle ranchers have discovered the mule to be an important asset to their business. He can go all day without tiring and can cover terrain that might discourage a horse. not to mention that the ride is much more comfortable. Hunters caught in the heavy snows of the Rocky Mountains praise their mules for carrying out heavy game and blazing trails through treacherous snowy ground, leading them and their horses to safety. Salespersons are grateful to both mules and donkeys for their humorous contributions in advertising, and children appreciate the companionship and the affection that mules can offer. Even the Army has conceded that mules could make their contribution to the economy through their use in mountain light infantry divisions. The only problem that arises is educating people on mule psychology so they can train them properly. They've found that although they've done these motorized vehicles, which they do call the mule, can only make it so far in the mountains before they have to break down and bring in a mule to cover the rest of the trip, because the terrain is so steep, so treacherous, and so erratic that these motorized vehicles still cannot go where mules and donkeys can go.
Wow.
Though we are still a busy society with the help of technology, we are more able to give the mule the time and appreciation he deserves, which is a good thing. The care is better, the management is better, and in a lot of cases, the training is better. We're continually discovering new uses for the much maligned mule, enjoying him more, and in the process, we're putting these old wives' tales to rest. I wrote a poem here when I wrote this article about mules and their changes after the industrial period in 1985. I'd like to read it to you now. Yesterday's mules were sturdy and strong. The days in the fields were often quite long. The man with the whip, sometimes even the score, with a jolt to the head by a stout 2x4. Understanding, a word not common for slaves, caused many good mules to go to their graves. Stubborn and cranky are mules, said most men, who used and abused them, then were kicked or bitten. When industry triumphed, the mules quickly faded, but the tails remained and were often quite jaded. 'Twas never the man with the stout 2x4 who was wrong from the start to push mules way too far. But the folks who were ignorant knew only what's said, and since mules cannot talk, their reputation was dead. They're known to be pushy, vengeful, and cross, so man abandoned the mule for his exquisite horse. But even after the Industrial Revolution, mules exhibited their versatility and once again defined their use for the new age. The military dispersed their cavalries and sold most of their mules in lieu of these motorized all-terrain vehicles. However, when they got up into the Rocky Mountains, they still found some areas impenetrable and had to resort to the use of pack mules yet again. In California, there's still a military mountain mule training camp, and this is just recently. The soldiers are still going to be trained in packing mules and everything because most people don't possess the patience to deal with a mule, and so they really need to be trained. It's not really the mules need to be trained. It's the people need to be trained on how to communicate with a mule. Now, we have recently experienced the largest storm ever to hit, the hurricane to hit the Gulf and work its way up into Florida, Alabama, Georgia, North and South Carolina, and eastern Tennessee.
Yeah.
And the devastation is just awful. And the government response has not been all that great. But we have to realize that we're in October now, and these people are sitting there with nothing. The storm surge was 20 feet of water that went over all that area and swept away their houses, their belongings, and a lot of people. The count right now is 230 dead. And in the beginning, there was a great response, and mules were certainly part of it. I got a story off the internet that said that mules are being used to carry supplies into western North Carolina. And with the cold weather coming, this is critical for these people. They're not seeing any government response and didn't see any government response for 6 days.
Wow.
But the story here is of a packing company. I'll read you this story that was written by author James Brierton from WCNC, and it was written on October 1st and put up on Facebook, and it's written from Weaverville, North Carolina. He says the animals are being used to carry water, diapers, and other much-needed essentials into the communities isolated after Hurricane Helene. After Helene isolated western North Carolina communities with landslides, flash flooding, and road damage, Good Samaritans have had to find creative ways to bring in much-needed supplies. In addition, airlift drops by military and civilian pilots, mule packers are using the animals to walk supplies into the mountainous communities. I might mention at this point that the roads are practically useless because they're cracked and half of them have slid downstream. So the reason that the mules have to be taken in there is because there's only maybe a 6 to 10 foot space available on the road next to the banks of where these roads were, and the rest of it slid downhill. And the mules are very careful about their footing, and so they can be taken in pack strings right along these narrower areas where there are slides where half the roads have disappeared. You obviously can't even take an ATV in an area like that. It wouldn't fit, but the mules do, with the packs on. And to continue this story, mules and equipment are loaded, and the first big batch of supplies has been purchased and loaded. The Mountain Mule Packer Ranch posted on Facebook on Monday. We have 2 fully loaded trucks and 20-foot stock trailers heading for western North Carolina for assistance. Later Monday, the ranchers posted pictures of the animals and supply cargoes on social media. We will be setting up a staging area and beginning to assist this afternoon, they wrote on Monday, and we'll be bringing up additional loads of supplies once the mules are in place. The Mountain Mule Packer Ranch is based out of Mount Eula, which is located between Lake Norman and Salisbury in North Carolina. They've been using their Facebook page to announce when they will be at the Food Lion located at 11745 Statesville Boulevard in Cleveland, North Carolina, to collect donations. Busy morning as we loaded lots of equipment, supplies, and mules to leave for western North Carolina. Please know that we appreciate every kind of word, gesture of support, and all that are partnering with us to help all that we can. We will be setting up a staging area and beginning to assist this afternoon, and we'll be bringing up additional loads of supplies once the mules are in place. Hashtag praying for those affected by Helene, hashtag mule power, hashtag strong together, hashtag mountain mule packers, hashtag military mules. The Mountain Mule Packer Ranch partnered with the Cajun Navy, another group of civilian volunteers, to deliver insulin to a family on Monday, according to their Facebook post. The ranchers have set up their staging area in Montreat on Tuesday. They were planning to make trips into Black Mountain. At 6:30 in the morning on October 1st, the Mountain Mule Packer Ranch writes that Mike and the mule team made it to their staging area in Montreat yesterday and have already been helpful to families in need. They will be doing all they can in Black Mountain today. Thankful to 511's Livestock Hauling for offering more help in hauling mules so we could bring more supplies up, and appreciate being able to give support Cajun Navy 216 on their efforts as well. The team here at the ranch will be shopping for more supplies today to restock them tomorrow. We appreciate the huge outpouring of requests on how to get supplies to us. Because of the conditions in the mountains and the way the team will be moving around, That's hard to coordinate. I will bring a trailer to the Food Lion Shopping Center this afternoon at approximately 4 p.m. if there is anyone in the area that wants to add to the supplies we are bringing. Please let me know if this is something you'd like to do, and we can be there between 4 and 5 today to collect what you have. God bless you all, and thank you for keeping prayers lifted up. The Food Lion, again, is located at 11745 Statesville Boulevard, Cleveland, North Carolina. There was another article that was in Equus magazine. Horse and mule groups aid North Carolina storm victims. Much needed supplies are being packed and airlifted into affected areas. This was printed on October 3rd by the edited press release. It says there's a developing story that will be updated periodically. A force of nature called Helene made landfall as a deadly Category 4 hurricane late on the evening of September 26, 2024, along the Florida Gulf Coast. One day later, as Helene weakened to a tropical storm, it unleashed damaging winds, unprecedented rainfall, and torrential flooding across the southeast United States, with Georgia and the Carolinas particularly hit hard. Donated hay by Sandhills Pony Club was listed over social media. In some cases, entire inland communities have been wiped out in scenes described as apocalyptic. The degree of destruction is staggering, and the death toll continues to rise, with rescue operations in full swing and hundreds of people still believed missing at this writing. In the wake of the devastation, groups such as the Mountain Mule Packer Ranch in Mount Eula, North Carolina, and the Sandhills Pony Club of Pine Bluff, North Carolina, have mobilized to help victims of Helene in that state's western mountains, many of whom have been stranded without food, water, cell power, electricity, and passable roads. Their targets may include not only the people in these locations, but their animals as well. In the case of the Mountain Mule Packer Ranch, a business that offers training in tactical mule packing, the objective is getting much needed supplies in by pack mule strings to especially hard to reach mountain locations. The mules and supplies are being hauled to local staging areas from which they are being deployed. According to reports, each of the mules can carry 200 pounds of supplies, everything from food and water to diapers and medical needs like insulin. In a recent Facebook post, the Mountain Mule Packer Ranch asked that anyone who wants to donate to the mission, who knows of any specific needs and areas where mule string help might be warranted, please reach out to them at 910-885-1402. That's 910-885-1402. We can bring supplies or pack whatever your group has acquired already, the post reads. There have also been reports of vital supplies being carried into the mountains by individuals on horseback. They are airlifting hay and animal feed. Meanwhile, members of the Sandhills Pony Club are using airlifts and ATVs to transport donated hay, feed, and animal supplies into zones where horses and other livestock and pets have not been evacuated. Recently added to the Pony Club's wish list is pet food in easily transportable sizes, roll-type temporary fencing, 5-gallon jugs for water, and small bags of high-performance dog food like Purina Pro Plan and Diamond Performance. No chicken, please, for the hard-working search and rescue dogs. The group is also asking for additional volunteers to help coordinate this massive relief effort. Call 615-268-9145 or email the Sandhills Pony Club at gmail.com for more information. That is 615-268-9145 or email the sandhillsponyclub@gmail.com for more information. A post on the club's Facebook page directs those wishing to help to send donations by Venmo, VENMO, at Sandhills Pony Club, Sandhills_Pony Club, or mail a check to Sandhills Pony Club, 255 Clifton Road, Pine Bluff, North Carolina. Send donations by VENMO at Sandhills_Pony Club, or mail a check to Sandhills Pony Club at 255 Clifton Road, Pine Bluff, North Carolina, 28373. Pine Bluff, North Carolina, 28373. Now, there is a landing page that Mountain Mule Packer Ranch has put up on Facebook, on social media as well. And I might mention at this point, in addition to all these civilians that are helping out, the government did not show up for 6 days. They looked around for FEMA. They were doing interviews with some news media, and the news media was taking videos while they were doing these interviews, and you could see in the background the devastation that was there. And they were talking also about the only help that they were getting was from citizens, and they were praising President Trump in both Georgia and North Carolina for showing up and doing what he could do to bring water, diapers, food to help stock these areas. He motivated such places as Walmart to start sending in trucks of supplies. They were asking about communication because there was no communication in these areas whatsoever.
Right.
And they knew that there were people in remote areas that they could not reach, and they needed to be able to communicate amongst each other, because the places where the media were in the towns that had been demolished.
Okay.
But there are a lot of very remote areas in the Appalachia Mountains. I learned about this a long time ago, and I'll talk about it here after I get through telling you who has helped here. But they were asking Trump about whether or not he knew anybody that could come in and set up communications, since FEMA wasn't there to do that. And so he goes, well, give me a minute, and he called Elon Musk. And while Trump was on the phone with Elon was already calling people and sending them to North Carolina, sending them to Georgia with the Starlink supplies to hook up communications.
Wow.
And Elon even said they got the whole motion started, and then they were not going by the process of government. So FEMA tried to stop them. But Elon managed to get around and find solutions to that and got Starlink through anyway. And he sent 8,500 units of communication equipment to both Georgia and North Carolina, and people to set it all up. So I think that was a major contribution from Elon's stance.
Oh, sure.
Ivanka Trump and her son were also in Georgia helping out. And they did what they could to bring in supplies and then distribute supplies in Georgia. J.D. Vance went to Raleigh and Charlotte, North Carolina. He was talking at a rally there to uplift people's spirits and to let people know the tremendous response that the citizens were executing at the time, and the tremendous way that they were helping and everything. And I gotta say, they were just making immense help in these areas that were devastated, and especially the ones in the towns where they could actually reach easily. Search and rescue, after 6 days of no government help, turned to 230 dead And the effort, once motivated, turned to a recovery effort. And there are a lot of people missing. I think I heard stats to 400 people missing after the lines of communication were opened up and they could actually start getting statistics. And then they were able to communicate with the military. And there are a lot of military bases that are stationed around the affected area. And they interviewed some of for instance, the National Guard. They had a National Guard of 1,000 troops on standby waiting for deployment, but they had not received their orders yet. Mm. And when they spoke to the bases around the area, the soldiers that were waiting there for deployment orders as well. That can only be given by the government, and they can't move unless they're ordered to do so. FEMA did start out going to North Carolina, but a report from FEMA said that on their way there, they hit a stop sign that told them they couldn't go any further, so they didn't.
Oh.
So, again, with the devastation in North Carolina, South Carolina, Georgia, Florida, Alabama, and Tennessee, mules are once again traveling far into areas that prohibit motorized vehicles from going. There are particularly remote areas in the Appalachian Mountains that can be truly difficult to navigate due to extremely steep trails and low haulers along the riverbanks, as described in a book I read about the first women on mules that delivered books to these remote areas and set up the first equine library for those that couldn't make it out of the mountains. They were illiterate people, and they weren't really motivated to go down into town for any reason. So they are tucked way up in those mountains. But this book, the title was The Book Women of Troublesome Creek by Kim Michelle Richardson. It was copyrighted in 2019. There were 3,548 books delivered monthly, and including to the Black communities that were tucked up into those mountains. And this whole project was started by the Works Progress Administration to create women's work programs and to assist economic recovery and build literacy in 1935. She wanted to write this book so it was more nonfiction than fiction, although there are fictional characters in it. But the main character rode a mule, and she talks about the terrain up there and the challenges that she and her mule were met with trying to get these library books up into the hills to these people. And a lot of these people, because they were illiterate and didn't know how to read, she would take time when she got to each house to recommend certain books that she thought would be appropriate to the adults and to the children. And she even brought newspaper articles with her to keep them up on current events. And if they didn't know how to read, then she would sit there and read these books to them. Wow. And actually teach them how to read while she was there. Cool. And these houses, because that terrain is so unforgiving, these mountains are not like the Rocky Mountains. The Rocky Mountains are high, and the canyons have nice width to them, enough to build roads through and everything like that. But up in Appalachia, it's not like that. She describes the trails that she and her mule a lot of times had to make to get to these houses and stuff, because they were riding on deer trails and trails that hunters used to get up through these mountains. And they were crawling on their hands and knees a lot of times, going up these steep hills, and then a lot of the people didn't want to be that far back in the back country, so they would build their houses along the creeks and rivers that ran through there. And between the mountains is very narrow. There's very little room to build any roads at all. The creeks go through there, and again, what you have is walking trails and deer trails and an occasional dirt road that will link up with these trails. And she talks about going down this trail after a heavy flood that happened while she was out delivering. The rain started coming down, and it was just pouring, so she knew where the next house on the trail was going to be. So she was trying to make it to that house, and what she was met with was a flooding river. The river was rising, and on the other side of the river was this house, and there was a mother and 4 children standing on the porch of the house as the water was rising up to the level of that porch. And they were going to be swept away in the river, undoubtedly, without a doubt. That river was rising exponentially with every moment. And so this librarian dismounted her mule, and it was a narrow enough river so she could throw her rope across the river, and the mother went ahead and attached it to one of the posts on the porch. And then she attached the other end to the saddle horn on her mule.
Oh, no.
And told her mule, whoa,
wow.
stand. And that mule stood absolutely still while she waded across the river, which was over waist high at this point, with rushing water. And she helped the children to get across and the mother to get across. And they all got across the river safely and then made their way back up the trail to a safer area, and they all survived. So it's because of people like this that write books like this that are realistic that you can get an idea of just how devastating it is in North Carolina once you get up into the Appalachian Mountains.
Oh, wow, yeah.
These people are left up there. They're spaced a long ways apart. Yeah. Some of them live high on the mountain. Other ones live right down on the creek. And with that 20-foot storm surge, the chance of any of those people surviving that lived along the creek is slim to none. They might have been able to climb up the mountain, up the hills, away from the creek, and they might have been up there hanging in trees, but how long could they do that?
Sure.
For six days?
Right.
You know, the military and the federal government have the resources to go in there with helicopters, with kayaks, canoes, whatever boats they can put on that kind of stuff once the storm surge has subsided, and get in there and try to rescue some of those people. And who's to say how many of those people could have been rescued up in there if they had been more timely in their response? Private citizens with their mules and horses were timely in their response and are definitely continuing to make a difference in the lives of the people who've been left homeless and floundering after this horrible disaster. We can see that no matter what people were saying about mules being this malign creature and all the negative things they've been saying about it, people are really quick to be a Monday morning quarterback and criticize. But could they leap to the occasion the way that these people did? It's not just the mules. The mules had to have good people to guide them. And the people that didn't have the mules, they just, rolled up their sleeves and started cleaning up the trash and the mess when a lot of people wouldn't even know where to begin, like our federal government. They didn't, obviously. They were floundering. The government's so bloated with bureaucracy that they couldn't do anything without their orders, and meanwhile, people were suffering and dying because of this.
Right. And did you know that there were Tennessee migrant workers that were arrested for looting?
Right. And guess what? When they're migrant workers like that, you know that they came over the border illegally.
Sure.
So you can blame the open border on the Democrats and Kamala Harris and Joe Biden. And while this was going on, by the way, when this hurricane started, Kamala Harris was in California at a fundraiser with all her elite friends, and Biden was laying on the beach.
Oh, yeah.
And neither one of them made an effort to get. Biden says he was on his phone. But he needed to be on his phone in the White House, and he needed to be giving orders to the other staffers that were there. You call this person. You call that person. You get a hold of this branch of the Army. You get a hold of the National Guard. Tell them to go. You can't do that from one cell phone.
Right.
I'm sorry. You just can't. They have really let us down. And this is not the first time. This is why Tulsi Gabbard changed parties. She changed and became a Republican because of the way the government responded to the fires on Maui.
Oh, yeah. Yeah.
They did not help those people. And then when they did go in there to help, they only offered money they had the same kind of devastation. Their homes burned to the ground. And then they just offered them money and took the land for those that would go ahead and take the money. And the people that didn't take the money didn't have any insurance that the government would pay. And so they have to pay out of pocket, and they have to rely on the help from their friends to rebuild. It's the citizens that are rebuilding their country. And the first order of business of our government, the first and foremost mission, is to take care of American citizens.
Right.
We are not addressing a political thing here. We're not looking at Republicans and Democrats. We're looking at American citizens that need assistance.
Exactly.
And their tax dollars have gone into FEMA.
Sure.
And gone into all of these other institutions so that when we have a disaster like this, that the money will be there.
Sure.
For them to use. But our democratic federal government is anything but democratic. First of all, they kicked Biden out of his place as president. He's been absent since they kicked him out, except for a few things here and a few appearances there. And they are lying about what the Republicans are doing, so much so that there's a lot of people that follow them that are not really able to get the real facts. Mm-hmm. Because all of it is manipulated by the media and by big tech. So they only give you what they want you to hear. And if you dig and research for this, you can uncover everything that I'm talking about today as fact.
Sure.
You can. And they are failing no matter what they say. And Trump is not lying like they keep saying that he is. He is helping. He's been a major asset. And if you look back at his 4 years as president, he did do a lot. And it's listed on, say, Hannity's website and in a lot of other places. You can look this up. And so they're really causing the pain and suffering that's going on today. And boy, aren't they wonderful? They have sent several $1 billion to the war in Ukraine. They have given illegals $1.4 billion to cover the cost of their housing in elite hotels, their food, their medical, everything that they would need, all of the things that they would need is paid for. But, oh, aren't they generous? They've conceded to give these people that are affected in all of these 6 states $750 per person. Now, I have to ask myself, well, gee, isn't that generous of you? $750, that's a slap in the face just to start with.
Sure.
But here's the other question. How are you going to get it to them?
Right. Yeah.
What are you going to do? Write a check? Where are they going to cash it?
Right.
A bank that isn't there anymore?
Exactly.
And where are they going to spend it? A grocery store that's not there anymore?
Exactly.
If you got an ounce of common sense, you'll ask yourself these questions. And you won't be naive about what these people are trying to make you think. And you will realize, as Elon Musk said, we as Republicans, I came over to be a Republican, as did Tulsi Gabbard and Robert Kennedy Jr., because the Democrats were not serving the people anymore. And they felt embarrassed and insulted by that party, because those people only care about themselves, their money, and their power, and they're trying to make America so that they can be in power for the rest of their lives, and they won't have to be voted in to do it. That's why they've got the open border, because they figure if they give all these immigrants, these illegal immigrants, all of these free things, that they will vote them in. And they're trying to make them more numerous than the population of our country. And they're not helping North Carolina because they don't want those people to be able to vote. It's as simple as that.
Exactly.
And Elon got up there on stage when Trump went back to Butler last Saturday, and it was, by the way, it was an amazing rally. There were 60,000 people there. Elon was there. Tulsi Gabbard was there. J.D. Vance was there. And they were all just saying all the wonderful things that were going on, and they praised the community effort in Butler to keep Trump alive because the Secret Service was so inept. I have to say, though, after a second assassination attempt on Trump's life, they finally figured out that maybe they better have adequate Secret Service, so they did at the second appearance in Butler. And Secret Service showed you in Butler what they were supposed to be all about, and that they really could do that. Now, Mayorkas, who was in charge of FEMA, just told us recently that there isn't enough money in FEMA to give these people any more than the $750 per person. And that they would be happy to pay later if the people kept track of their expenses and they would reimburse them. That's not likely to happen.
Sure.
Mayorkas also reported that there is not enough money to cover the remainder of the hurricane season. And we have another hurricane coming up right now. A lot of people left the Secret Service after them screwing it up twice. And I guess they didn't dare do it again. And who is left in the Secret Service, I think, were not the people who were all that competent. But I do suspect that the people that left the Secret Service might be the same people that I saw that stepped in Butler and covered that event, because they were professional there. They did a complete walkthrough twice to make sure that there were no people in that 60,000 people in that crowd that were doing anything they shouldn't, or made sure they didn't look suspicious. They had several speakers that came on stage, and they swept the area before each speaker. And the speakers that spoke were eloquent. It was particularly enlightening to listen to Eric Trump and Lara Trump talk about what is being done about election integrity and all the different things they're trying to do for the American people. And it's not what the Democrats are saying. What they're saying is total lies to get themselves elected, and that's it. And people need to know that. We are upon the eve of our election in less than 30 days now, 29 days from now, and we are able to vote right now. So I would say to people, I feel it's my duty to tell you to go out and vote against the lies that you've been told. If you want the aid from your federal government to become legal again, to go, like Elon said, according to the Constitution, and where they serve you, the American people, and that they will back your freedom of speech, your freedom of the press, and have the freedom of the press be done by true reporters, true journalists, and not people that think that's what they are.
Right.
There's only a handful that are truly journalists out there these days, and they are the ones that are uncovering all of this.
Sure.
And they're writing books about it. I mean, John Solomon, Peter Schweitzer, Sarah Carter, and Newt Gingrich, and a whole bunch of other people are writing books about what's going on with our government, and it's not pretty. And people need to know about it. And the reason I think that they went ahead and infiltrated the schools and started teaching everything but reading, writing, and arithmetic is because they don't want you to read their books. Because you might become more educated, and then they wouldn't be able to manipulate you the way they are right now.
Exactly. There you go.
So I don't consider what I'm saying here political. As with everything else, I have been sharing the information that I've learned about mules to help more people get along with their mules and enjoy everything that mules have to offer, because they are amazing animals. They truly, truly are. And they will always be an asset to our American way of life due to their outstanding characteristics, their versatility, and ability to go where not all men can go, as they have demonstrated many times over. And that's why the military, they may have dispersed their cavalry, but they didn't get rid of all their mules. They decided to keep a few. And it's for that very purpose.
Good.
You know? So I will close this by saying, people, get out and vote for the Republican ticket all the way down the line if you want your rights back and if you want safe streets, if you want your children to get a good education, if you want them to grow up in the world you grew up in with all the benefits and all the assets and be able to enjoy their childhood without worrying or looking over their shoulder and having your cities and towns burned to the ground and vandalized and people murdered all over the place. There's a very simple way to take care of all this. And yes, Trump does have a plan. He outlined it in Butler. I suspect you can get up on YouTube and probably see it. And if you can't see it there, then go ahead and spend the money to subscribe to Fox Nation, because I know it's up there. And you can get all the facts you need up there about what's really going on and feel good about joining and voting for the Republican Party so that you can have your rights. You will no longer be censored. You will have your right to free speech. You will have your right to free press. And you will have the right to the Second Amendment, which will be able to defend all the rights you have in the First Amendment.
You bet.
So, in closing, I'm going to read the last part of my poem.
Really?
I am.
Okay.
With more time to our leisure, the mules of today are treated much better and perform just that way. The love and affection the mules can now give makes raising and training a warm way to live. To meet them and greet them, to own one or not, the mules of today exhibit just what they got. We've banned the old wives' tales and made a new rule. If you aren't too stubborn, why not ride a mule?
That's pretty cool. I like that.
You like that?
You
well,
know,
they're doing their duty again.
Oh, absolutely. They are amazing, amazing animals.
Me neither. And just about the time you think you've had it, they're teaching you something to make you think, well, maybe I didn't have it. Maybe I got more to learn. You know?
Boy. On a good note here, I see that Donald Trump set up a GoFundMe for the Hurricane Helene victims, and he raised raised a lot of money in that regard. And then also the Queen of Country, Dolly Parton.
I was just gonna say,
Yes.
yeah.
She donated $1 million, and we've got some country singers that are setting up concerts to raise money for these people.
And Dolly's 1 million turned into 10 from donors.
Oh, yes. Awesome.
And she got up there and she said, "These are my people from Appalachia, and this is why I'm doing it." And it's just like I said, this is not a political issue. This is an American issue.
Right.
And we all need to band together to help those that need our help.
Exactly. We got to make our nation strong.
And safe.
Yes. Yeah.
And prosperous. We need to make our nation great again.
You know, I'm embarrassed that the donkey is the icon for the Democratic Party.
I have to agree with you, Cindy. And my mules tell me every day how embarrassed they are.
Oh, well, sure. I mean,
they don't like being exploited like that and being looked upon as a dumb animal when they are as intelligent as they are.
I think it should be either the Tin Man or Gumby. I mean,
how about a cockroach? I didn't say that, did I?
Oh, okay. Well, I guess we need to do a close.
I guess we do.
Before
we wish you all the best out there. And if there's anything that Cindy and I can do to help, please let us know.
Yes.
We'll be glad to do it.
Yeah, please let us know, because our hearts go out to you, and we're so proud of the mules that are there.
And proud of all the mule people.
The mule people,
who seem to be the first people to respond to anything.
Yeah. All right, excellent. With that thought, Meredith, you have a wonderful afternoon, and we will talk soon.
Sounds great, Cindy. You have a wonderful afternoon, too.
Meredith's website is lucky3ranch.com, and you can call her at 1-800-816-7566. And I can be reached through my website, everycowgirlsdream.com.
Gotta go. My mule is looking for me.
Mule Talk is an Every Cowgirl's Dream production.